Just 11 days to go, and there's no question it's a tight race between President Obama and Mitt Romney. But in some key battlegrounds, one side has a clear advantage. A brand new poll in Ohio shows President Obama leading by 4 points. And one top Romney surrogate, Ohio Senator Rob Portman, says Ohio is all.
If we don't win Ohio, it's tough to see us winning the election nationally. It's possible, but it's very difficult. And so Ohio becomes kind of a key element to actually winning the election.
That's the assessment from the Romney folks, with polls showing him down in Ohio. In fact, President Obama is leading in 7 out of 11 toss-up states. Romney only leads in 4, and those 4 aren't enough for him to win the presidency. Today, the Las Vegas Sun endorsed President Obama and slammed Romney. The paper says, quote, after studying the campaign, we're not sure who Mitt Romney really is or what he really stands for. Romney has been called a flip-flopper, but his changes over the past year would make a chameleon blush. Can you really trust Mitt Romney? It's a point the president's been making on the campaign trail.
There's no more serious issue in a presidential campaign than trust. Trust matters. When you elect a president, you're counting on somebody you can trust to fight for you. And you know what? You know me. You know I say what I mean, and I mean what I say.
Joining me now, Crystal Ball, co-host of The Cycle here on MSNBC, and MSNBC contributor Jonathan Capehart, columnist for The Washington Post. Thank you both for being here tonight.
Thanks, Reverend.
Hi, Rev. Thanks.
Crystal, it's close, but the battleground map favors the president, right?
That's exactly right, and you're right to focus on Ohio, where the president still has a significant lead. And the other state, if Romney didn't win Ohio, if he were to have another credible path, that path runs through Wisconsin, another state where the president continues to hold a lead. Without winning either one of those two, it is very difficult, near impossible for Romney to get there. So as much as the national polls have certainly tightened, and in the Real Clear Politics average, Romney actually has a slight lead, in those key battleground states, the president still has many more paths to get to 270 than Mitt Romney does.
Now, Jonathan, Republicans are nervous. Here's what National Journal's Major Garrett reported. Quote, Romney and the Republican National Committee operatives won't say it publicly, but concede privately that Nevada is out of reach largely because of Hispanic voters and Obama's superior ground operation. Iowa remains fluid, but according to GOP operatives, has tilted toward Obama in the past 2 weeks. So with all of the tightening of the national polls, on the ground and battlegrounds, it seems like they're getting nervous with a lot of justification, Jonathan.
Well, as both sides have known all along, and as we have known all along, it's all going to be about the ground game, both in the early voting states, such as Ohio, but also on Election Day, getting those people out to the polls, either to file absentee ballots, early vote, or get to the polls on November 6th. And that's something that the Obama campaign has been focused on from minute one, and also focused on getting out their coalition of voters, women, people of color, African Americans in particular, Latinos in particular, getting them out there in the numbers that they voted in 2008, to get them to do that again in 2012.
Now, Crystal, the Obama campaign is getting very specific about that. Quote, after using their huge database to increase registration among favorable voting groups in crucial states, they are now pinpointing people who's ordered absentee ballots and need a nudge to send them, or sporadic voters who indicated they would vote for the president but may need to be pushed to show up at their polling place. This is real specific kind of campaigning, Crystal.
Very specific and very smart. And the argument that some Republicans have been making is, oh, the early voting numbers are high, but Democrats are just pushing people who would have otherwise voted on Election Day to vote earlier. That is not the case. Typically, people who vote early are a different set of voters. They are going after people who you would call sporadic voters, who in a lot of the polls won't even show up in the likely voter model. They'd show up as registered voters, but when you narrow it down, they would be unlikely to show up there. And going back to some of the points Jonathan made about the president's base and the coalition that he's been assembling, and also about this vaunted enthusiasm gap. There are some new numbers in Georgia, which of course is not a swing state or a battleground state, but showing that African-American turnout in Georgia is on pace to be at record levels, historic record levels. So very encouraging that the president's base seems to be turning out.
Now, on the other side of this, Jonathan, Politico's reporting the Romney campaign is about to unleash millions in ad spending. Quote, big, powerful ads in swing state media markets are in the pipeline. These ads will be focused on sealing the deal in North Carolina, Florida, and Virginia, where Romney has gained momentum after the debates and is breaking Obama's hold in Midwestern states, Ohio, Wisconsin, and Colorado. Do you think ad buys or air attack can move the dial for Mr. Romney?
Well, it depends on who's watching those ads and whether they are indeed persuadable. They're going after people who primarily voted for President Obama in 2008 and are still on the fence about whether they're going to give him the nod again. And they'll probably be amenable to a message that would make them comfortable with Mitt Romney. He needs Virginia. He needs North Carolina. He needs Florida. And he definitely needs Ohio if he wants to win the presidency. But as Crystal said earlier, the president has many more avenues to get to 270 than Mitt Romney does. So every dollar he spends probably will be a dollar well spent from their vantage point to try to reach that goal of 270.
Now, Crystal, you mentioned Florida. President Obama and President Clinton will campaign together this coming Monday in Orlando, Florida, Youngstown, Ohio, and Prince William County, Virginia. That's an effective duo, wouldn't you say?
I would say so. And Prince William County, Virginia is my old neck of the woods. Part of my congressional district runs into Prince William County. I mean, those are key areas. I think going to Florida shows that they still think Florida is in play. That's probably going to be one of the tougher swing states to them. But back to the question of ad spending at this point, I mean, I'm from Virginia. My parents live in Virginia. My family's there. And I think all the voters, their eyes are totally glazed over because they've just been bombarded with ad after ad after ad. So at this point, if I had to test the ground game versus the air war, I would definitely put my money on the ground game.
Now, another weapon, potentially, Jonathan, is the young vote. President Obama urged young audience listeners on MTV to get out and vote early. Listen to this.
I hope every young person who's listening don't believe this idea that your vote does not matter. In 2000, in Gore versus Bush, 537 votes changed the direction of history in a profound way. And the same thing could happen here. So there's no excuse. Regardless of who you vote for, folks need to get out there and vote.
Young voters could make a difference, Jonathan?
Yes. I mean, talk about the ultimate sporadic voters. Remember, sporadic voters are people who may have voted in 2008, and that might have been the first time they ever voted for one reason or another. And we always talk about the youth vote and why politicians don't take them seriously. By and large, it's because they don't vote. Well, President Obama is trying to remind them, one, of what they did in 2008 and helping him get into office, but also in that clip you showed, showing them just how important that vote, how important that vote is. And then specifically, you notice he said in there, it doesn't matter who you vote for, you just should go out and vote. But it's Barack Obama who's running for re-election, asking them to vote, and he hopes they vote for him.
Jonathan, Crystal, I'll have to leave it there. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thanks, Reverend.
Be sure and catch Crystal on The Cycle weekdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on MSNBC.